I have started the recording on my relatively new laptop, which is a second-hand laptop. So I have space. It's also a concept. I don't know, what does space mean, especially when in a computer. How do the laptops are pretty much all the same size. How come some have more space than others? It's not really space. It's not, it's some kind of conceptual space that can't be experienced. Hi, Olga, or hola, hola, hola. mm, so just before I go any further, I was inspired by my wardrobe. I think yesterday when I put up the topic for the talk for tonight, I found a t-shirt that I haven't worn for quite a while. So I'm wearing it now. I'll just show it to you. Don't know if you'll be able to read it properly, but can you read that? Just in case you weren't able to read it, it's a bit cursive, the writing. It says new life. New life is within. And I got this from a place in Thailand where I taught a Vipassana meditation retreat. I think it was 4 or 5 days. And it's a place called the New Life Foundation. And that's a place where they allow people who have rehabilitated from drug use mostly, but also any other mental disorders, people who are struggling with perhaps even social disorders, mental disorders, drug addictions, alcohol, and other such things. Then they, after they have recovered, they can go to this place and start their integration back into community. So the people there, the people who are staying there are recovering, but then the people who are running it are mostly people who are, somewhat trained in assisting people in their recovery and their reintegration. So I ran a retreat there, which went very nicely, and they gave me a t-shirt, which is also very nice. Um, but it's a really important place and a really important part of our society that I think many people don't understand, that there are so many people now who have mental problems and addiction problems, and that they can actually overcome that. They can actually rehabilitate their mind, and then they need a supportive community to help them to reintegrate back into society. So it's not the rehabilitation center, it's like a halfway between the rehab center and then the society itself. So it's called New Life Foundation in northern Thailand. And I haven't seen too many other places like that. I know they have a couple of other branches. I think they're making one in Spain or somewhere else. And yeah, and mindfulness becomes such an important part of people's rehabilitation and reintegration, and also in the recovery process itself. So during um, during the rehabilitation, they need to have mindfulness as well. So, and even lately here at home, I've been connecting with a larger group of the community, and I have actually had quite a few friends who are post rehab or rehabilitation and been coming for mindfulness courses, coming for meditations and such. So it feels good to be able to help people to find their way again, because especially from drug addiction, you can be extremely lost in the world. The drugs make you think that you're on top of everything. They make you think that you know everything, can do everything, that there's no problem, etc. But then once you stop taking them, you realize that there's a big mess and a big hole in your life that then needs to be slowly filled. So um, it's meditation, mindfulness is a really important step and practice in that as well. So but tonight's topic wasn't necessarily regarding creating a new life because you are recovering from any mental disorder or any alcohol or drug addiction issue. But then again, it was interesting when one of the first things you find when you sit down to meditate is that you you feel that you are quite crazy. And many people, when they do their first meditation, and especially on their first retreat, many people will say, I think I'm mad. I think I'm completely crazy, because it's sometimes it's the only time that we really sit down and have a good look at our mind. And when you really do that very honestly, you will see that there are thoughts all over the place. We call it monkey mind, that your mind is like a jungle, and or like a busy city street with so many things going on, that we really can feel quite crazy, in fact. And a little bit reassuringly, but then on the other hand, I'm not sure how you take it, but the Buddha said that we are all crazy, in fact. And I remember one of my first retreats with my teacher, my main first teacher, somebody had said to him after meditation, said, I think I'm crazy. And he just laughed and said, oh, no, 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 you are overcoming your craziness. So that's a little bit reassuring that um, we have been crazy. And it doesn't matter who you are. You, we all get a little bit crazy at times. Stress. Even if you live a ordinary life and you just, you work 9 to 5 or whatever, but you get stressed. Stress is a mild form, and sometimes even intense form, of craziness, really. And when we get mad, when we get angry and such, it's also looks to me like craziness. So I think all of us suffering from strong emotions might feel very crazy. Sometimes life can be very confusing. At the moment, the world itself is um, in a very interesting period of change. So, especially since last year was such a crazy year for all of us, something that we had never experienced before. We could never even dream that that would happen to us. So, we all were a little bit crazy last year and found ourselves um, having thoughts that we'd never thought before, having feelings that we'd never felt before, being worried about things that we'd never worried about before. So it very much changed our lives from, yeah, just our ordinary routine that we were all probably used to. It had to change very much, and it still is. Many of us are still in lockdown. Many people are still having to adjust to the situation, even locally here. There were some cases in Sydney. So, and like we're 80 kilometers from Sydney. We're not in Sydney. I'm way out of Sydney, but they decided in our area everyone has to wear a mask when you go to the shops. Actually, to be honest, friends, I wore a mask once, and that was the day I came back into Australia. At the airport, they forced me to wear a mask, and so I wore it that day to come home, and since then I haven't had to wear a mask. So it's we've been very lucky, and we have a lot of nature here, a lot of outdoors, and we didn't have many cases around here. So we've been very blessed. But I understand many of you have been very locked down, and had to, really rearrange your life. Even things like this Zoom meeting was born from last year, which is, in a way, it's a good thing. It's an alternative to me traveling, and we get to see each other. We get to have a chat and interact, but it's definitely a change. So tonight, I'm talking more about how you can redesign yourself, how you can understand two things. One is that your life is constantly changing. So you are already in a state of change. There is no escape from that, that what you are experiencing is already change. And the other thing is that you have the option, or it appears that we have the option, to change things and make changes in our lives. So there are these two aspects. We are not just locked in and must suffer the consequences of whatever you want to call it, our karma, or even the consequences of a pre-written plan that we have no control over. So we have free will, an ability to change and create the life that we want to create. But then we also have this constant changing experience. So I'll lead you through that experience and explain that more in the meditation as we go on. So that's about change and redesigning your life. Well, actually, I'm in the middle of doing this at the moment, because as you, especially the regulars who come, you are following my story that my mum passed away last year. My dad was already long gone. I'm living in my mum's house, and which has been my home all my life. Always a place that I could come home to. It has now been sold, and I have to move out of basically the only home that I've ever known. So now I have to really redesign myself. And it's really, really interesting process to explore the avenues. Actually, I find that quite often when I think about it, my mind explodes into possibilities. And one of those possibilities is to come to your country, uh, wherever you are, right there now. And and that's why you're probably here, because I've already been to your country and many of you I've already met. That's a possibility. Of course, it would take some political shuffling, I think, for me to escape from Australia and to be able to go from country to country. But at some point, it may be possible to do that. So that's one possibility. And then, of course, I could live in any of your countries, which I would really love to do. I love to visit your countries. I love to be with you. And I have so many options. You know, I could go to Bali, I could go to Indonesia, and I could go to Malaysia and Thailand, even Dubai. And then, of course, Turkey is like my second home, and even Thailand also. Even Myanmar, Burma, I could possibly go to, and Czech Republic, and these days, even some of the ex-Soviet states I could also um, live in. So it's um, that's one option, is to go abroad, but then to live here, I could maybe start a meditation center. I could start to build even a place like New Life, you know, start a place where people could, after rehab and after addiction or substance abuse, etc., they could come and integrate, like a wellness center. Um, Also, I would like to integrate the Aboriginal teachings into the mindfulness practices as well, because our Aboriginal culture is so, to say that it's connected to the earth actually doesn't do it justice. The Aboriginal culture, their way of life, it is the earth. It is nature. It's not they are connected to nature like we connect to nature. The way Aboriginals lived was nature. They lived in perfect harmony with the trees and the seasons and the animals and all things everywhere in all time and space. It's such a powerful and almost, for us, an unbelievable culture, perhaps similar to the North American Indians and perhaps similar to many other Aboriginal or indigenous cultures across the world. So it would be really beautiful to integrate mindfulness into Aboriginal culture, and even the teaching of the Buddha, as you've heard me say probably before, that the name that the Buddha gave to his teaching was, in Pali language, is Dhamma, Dhamma. You may have heard of a word such as Dharma. Both words mean the same thing. Dharma is in Sanskrit. It means, at least in Pali, Dhamma means nature or natural law. So the Buddha was actually teaching natural law. And that's what Aboriginals lived by. They didn't live by the teaching of the Buddha, but they lived by natural law. And it's something that we, as let's say Westerners or well-educated people, most of my friends here that come online, we live in cities, we live in houses, we live in societies where we are really not very connected to the earth at all. And in fact, now many of you living in the Northern Hemisphere, you are in winter, and some of you could go for many, many months actually without putting your feet on the grass, on the soil, on the earth, or in the snow, as the case may be. The first time I was in Turkey and it snowed, when I was in Istanbul, it was all I wanted to do was to do walking meditation in the snow, because I was living in Thailand at the time, and it suddenly started snowing in February in Istanbul. I was so excited. I went outside and I was doing walking meditation in the snow, and it was fantastic. Of course, your feet are freezing and your feet go numb. They even get to the point where they become painful, but you don't die from it, and your feet don't drop off. They don't become, black and you can't use them again. Of course, you don't go to that extent, but I do believe Wim Hof, if any of you know of the teachings of Wim Hof, if I'm not mistaken, he did something. They call him the Iceman. Um, I think um, he climbed Mount Everest barefoot. I think I think that's one of his world records that he has. He's got something like 26 world records, and one of them is I think that's one of them, that he climbed Mount Everest barefoot and also in a pair of shorts. I think so. So we can definitely overcome the cold. So um, yeah, wherever you are, even though it's getting cold in your country, in your environment, still don't forget to spend some time to connect with the earth. Even if it, even if you don't go outside barefoot, can you go and hug a tree? Can you, go and sit in the park? Can you uh, spend time at least outside, breathing the fresh air and connecting with the natural elements? Because this is what the indigenous cultures have been doing since the beginning of time. And in fact, even whatever culture you come from. So look at me, I'm your average white guy, I have European blood, I have German blood, I have English, Irish. I'm also from the Northern Hemisphere. Um, but it doesn't matter what your background is. You can still connect with the earth as our cultures did a long time ago. So this is just a little reminder to connect with the earth as much as you can every day. That was a nice tangent that I went off on there. Let me see if I can get back to where I was. Um, about redesigning your life, actually, was my point. And I have many options. I could live here in Australia. I could just get a van, a camper van or something, and just travel around Australia and live my own life and just do things online. It's also possible for me to do that. I could live like a gypsy. Uh, I could also go bush and live in the bush and not have internet, and just maybe go and live with some Aboriginal people and really just do that for myself, by myself, and become one with the earth again. So what did I think yesterday? Uh, I was sitting in my garden at home yesterday, earthing myself. No, it was today, actually. And I thought, um, the weeds, and so this is a little quote for you, if you like. The weeds in your garden are more connected to the earth than you are. So the weeds, that means, the unwanted things in the garden, we don't think of them as being important or, having any particular value in life. But the weeds in your garden are probably, I'll put in probably, more connected to the earth than you are. So in this way, weeds, even weeds, can become our teachers, become our inspiration, can remind us of how we should be connected to the earth, living from the earth. Another way that we can feel more earth connected is in our foods as well. I know the Turkish um, cuisine, especially your Turkish breakfast, which I love. You have your domates and what was salatası? Yeah,
Salatalık.
salatası. Yeah, and
Salatalık.
and um,
Biber.
reyhan, biber, and rocket, and falan falan. All these lovely, beautiful vegetables and herbs and things that actually in our culture, in Australian or European culture, we wouldn't think to be eating um, salad for breakfast. And in the Asian culture, they love to cook their breakfast, cook rice and cook other things for breakfast. So, um, but still, just a little reminder that, you know, what we put into our mouth also, if it can come straight from your garden and put it straight into your body, this is absolutely the best food that you could ever eat. So even tonight, I made some instant noodles, okay, but I put in fresh holy basil, fresh tulsi from the garden. I put in fresh parsley from the garden. I put in carrot. I put in celery. I put in spring onions as well. So even if we have to eat some things um, that may be produced or packaged or something, what's the word I'm looking for? Processed. We can still add in our extras and make sure that we get greens every day and good, healthy, earthy foods as much as possible. So coming back to redesigning your life, I've been watching a few documentaries, and these documentaries, um, so a friend of mine, oh, by the way, over New Year, which is partly why I didn't really celebrate New Year, is because we ran a retreat over New Year. And that's why we didn't have our Zoom last Saturday. I was on retreat. I led a physical retreat here. I had 16 friends come and join me. We went out deep into a forest where there is a meditation center. And we had a 4-day, mostly silent Vipassana, freestyle Vipassana retreat. Everybody was extremely happy with that experience. I'm so, maybe, I don't know if it's happy, but I feel so, I think, impressed by the local people actually wanting to come for a retreat and really, really doing such good work on themselves on the retreat. And in fact, this was also an inspiration. So we started on New Year's Eve day. So that was Thursday morning of the 31st. So our New Year's Eve was in complete silence. In fact, I think we went to bed at 10 o'clock or something like that. And so to me, New Year's Eve didn't really happen. We were all on a silent retreat. And then even the next day, I didn't tell, I didn't mention about New Year's Eve to anybody. And so, or New Year's Day. And so New Year's Day pretty much passed without anybody talking about, hey, it's 2021. There was no, it's a concept. Actually, it didn't even matter whether it was a Friday or a Saturday or a Tuesday. The day didn't matter. All it mattered was, okay, breakfast, you know, at 7:30. Actually, I asked them all to let go of their clocks, their watches and everything. And there was no clock available for them. all I was doing was ringing the bell for them. So many of them already, that is just an amazing experience to live in a kind of um, a timeless day where when you hear a bell, you realize, oh, okay, it must be breakfast time. And then the next bell you hear, it's, oh, we'll go to the meditation hall. The next bell would be lunch. The next bell is to, after having a rest, to wake up, go back to the meditation hall. Another bell is the communal tea time. I make chai and um, another special treat in the evening. And we all come together. Um, not, it's me who's watching the time, but they are just following a bell, which is in itself another beautiful kind of freedom, that you don't have to think about what time it is, or you don't have to check your watch. Oh, how long did I meditate? Oh, I did 20 minutes or half an hour, or oh, I did 2 hours or something like that. You don't even know. So your mind also then becomes free of the concept of time. Your mind becomes free of the concept of whether it's New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. It actually doesn't matter. So we had a really beautiful retreat, and I had two young people on the retreat. One one young lady was 21, and another guy, I'm guessing he's probably about 28. I'd say about 28. And they both came back to a session that we held on Thursday. So I have my Thursday night mindfulness and meditation session. And I asked friends who were on retreat, please come and share your experience. Both of them said that they felt like a new person, that when they came back and went back to their family, went back to work, um, even going back home, even though everything is familiar to you, you're seeing it through different eyes. And that was only over a 4-day retreat. Imagine how transformative it can become to do even a 10-day retreat, or perhaps even longer. So when I think about it now, I think that my first retreat also was very transformative. And then my subsequent retreats after that, also very transformative. And when I think about the person that I used to be, it's almost, I can't really remember who I used to be. It's like almost a shadow, or almost a bit like we didn't have home movies, but it's almost like if I think about the person that I used to be, it's like maybe watching an old home video or a home movie or something, that, yeah, okay, that's who I was, but it has no relationship to the person that I am now. And another thing I realized, and in fact, uh, just a few days ago, I took friends here to a Thai forest monastery. In Australia, we are very blessed to have um, many different cultures living here, especially Asian cultures. And not that far from my home, about 40 minutes drive in the forest, there is a Thai Buddhist monastery with real Thai monks living there. We have 4 monks living there, and also an Australian monk who's been a monk for 15 or 16 years. One of my friends, who hadn't really spoken to a Buddhist monk before, asked him, what was when did he have his last insight? That is, when did he have his last realization? And he said, oh, um, I have them every day, or something like that. And I thought to myself, if somebody asked me that question, I would, I would sometimes, today I've had many insights. So it's like I am almost becoming a new person throughout the whole day. When you get an insight, insight means a realization, something that you never realized before. Maybe you heard about it, but you never experienced it. When you experience something deeply with your heart, and it's something that you've never had before, or something that even you've had before, but you're having it on a deeper level, it becomes what we call an insight. And I believe this insight is what shifts and changes your mind. And when we have many insights, these become wisdom, and it's wisdom that really shifts and changes our mind. So, in a way, if you want to redesign yourself, if you want to create a new you, then the best way, I believe, is to practice this mindfulness. Even if you can go on retreat, maybe one day I can organize an online retreat. We've done it before. It worked well before. We could do another one. And when we practice more deeply, more continuously, more consecutively, and we have some kind of a routine and um, a flow of our practice, then we start to see how we change and how we start to understand things more deeply and more clearly. And then when you look back, you realize I really have changed. I'm really not the person that I thought I was, or I'm not the person that I used to be. This can be scary if it happens too quickly and you're not used to it and you don't understand the process. So many people can be afraid and shocked by this. But when you are in the hands of a good teacher, somebody who has practiced that and been through many processes of change themselves, and even continuing to go through their process of change, they hold your hand, they go with you, they they experience the change with you. So that's the beautiful thing about being on retreat, especially with those two younger members of the retreat. Every day they would come and talk to me and have, some questions, some feedback or something, or at least I was there to observe them. And I know the first day he was there, he was so fast and he was making noise everywhere he went. He'd put something on the table and it would make a noise, and he'd close the door and he'd make a noise, and he would walk and make a noise. And then the second day, I noticed he started to slow down a little bit and started to become a bit quieter. On the last day, he was like a mouse. You wouldn't hardly know that he was there. So that I could observe his transformation. And the girl she often came to me and expressed her feelings, um, and she was able to understand herself. So I could understand and see her transformation by her sharing with me. So a new life is possible. I don't know what your current life is like. In fact, the other night when we shared this in the group, our mindfulness group, a man who hadn't been to our sessions before, a man who came with his partner, so I believe that he didn't really want to come. He came and appeared to be quite skeptical, and you can usually tell because, quite often they'll sit there, quite closed and blocked and, looking quite strangely at people when they're sharing. And after we'd shared, I asked, is there any questions? And he said, what was wrong with your life? What was wrong with the you before you went to retreat? And one friend, the young guy, answered in a very great way. And the other friends really appreciated that, his sharing. But then I said to him, I said, we all come to retreat for a different reason. And sometimes it's not because there's something wrong with your life. For example, I take myself, I didn't go to meditation or on retreat because there was something wrong with me. I went because I was happy. I later found it out that my happiness was a very ignorant, deluded happiness, but I thought I was happy. And my question was, if I am happy now, then what happens after you are happy? What's the next level? What's the next step? Where do you go from happiness? So this was why I went to meditation. So we don't all go to meditation or to retreat because we are suffering or because there's something wrong or we're trying to change something or fix something or get rid of something. But many people do come for those reasons. Sometimes we want to improve a particular mental state. Maybe we want to improve our mindfulness, improve our concentration, maybe improve our wisdom. Not that there's anything wrong, but we would like to progress a little bit further. Some people would like to maybe, get rid of maybe get rid of stress, maybe get rid of anger or fear or something like that, maybe guilty feeling, etc. So we all come on retreat for different reasons and we get different results. So everyone who comes, and he also here in this group, you all come to this for your own reasons and your different reasons. And so you are looking through different eyes and you get your different experiences, each one of you. And even myself, I also get my experience from this sharing. So there was another word that I used today, and that is become or becoming. Becoming, if you take the word just as it is, not I am becoming a teacher or I am becoming blah, 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 but just the word becoming, it implies arising, creating something that is forming out of something else. So again, to take the example of last year, where we all went through changes, those changes are creating new people in this world. all of us have had some kind of transformation. So that was the other word I used in the advertisement for this. Transform, change, and becoming. We are all becoming something new, even by listening to these words. Some things I say, some concepts that I offer you, help you to transform, help you to become something that perhaps you want to become, or something that you were already going to become. But having heard these words, it accelerates the process. This is where one of the greatest attitudes we can have in this life, not only an attitude towards meditation, which we will do coming soon, but also in life, is open-mindedness. You can't just force yourself to be open-minded. It doesn't work, because forcing yourself actually to do anything is not really going to work. It can sometimes, but it can also create sometimes even the opposite of what you tried to create. But by relaxing, being open, by seeing your blockages, by seeing how you close your mind. And one of my main realizations was that it was expectations that blocked my mind. Expectations in themselves are not bad things. There's nothing wrong. It's nice to expect something that you think might happen, or it's nice to have something to look forward to. A psychologist once told me that, you know, a depressed person should have something to look forward to. But here, that's not what I mean by expectation. Expectation here means that I'm holding something in my mind. I want this thing. I want to have this experience. I want to see that, feel it, experience it, sense it. But because I'm focused on it, I'm not focusing on and not experiencing the reality of the present moment. That means I'm looking at what I want and not at what I've got. So this is the principle of mindfulness, is to be with what you have now, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, like my little itch under my nose. Whether it's what you want or not what you want, it is as it is. I am as I am, and all is well. I think you might remember that from our last meeting together. Everything is as it is. When you are open to this, you see a whole new reality rather than the world that you are expecting. We live through life expecting our parents should be like this, or my teachers should be like that, or the weather should be like this, or the food should be like that, or my friends should act like this, my government, my society, even my environment should be a particular way. We live in that expectation. And often we are very disappointed Expectations largely, commonly lead to disappointment. This is why many people are depressed. They expect the world and things and people to be a particular way. And when they are not that way, they get angry, they get depressed, they resist, they fight, they struggle. This word struggle, I hear this very often. People say, oh, I struggled in my meditation, or I struggled to understand this, or I struggle with this person, or I struggle in my job, my relationship. When you understand something, anything, there's no more struggle. This is a beautiful realization. There's no need to struggle. Struggling is caused by ignorance. Ignorance here means lack of understanding. When you don't understand something in its true nature, you struggle with it. Wise people don't struggle. Whenever you meet someone who's wise, what do they look like? How do they look? They're mostly relaxed, they're chilled, they're saying, it's going to be all right, it's going to work out, it's all right, just do this or just do that. They've got it sorted. They know that everything is actually all right. But us who are not wise, we're acting on our ignorance, and that's not our fault, but we can change that by being more present. That's okay. Bouquet, you can go. Thank you. Bye-bye. You can change everything, especially through your awareness. Awareness, mindfulness is the first step to the arising of wisdom. Insight first, which is the flash of wisdom, and then the waves of wisdom that come with the insights that we get. That's how the life changes. So, yes, you can work towards changing yourself. You can do things that help you to find a new way. For example, I am watching some documentaries now. It's interesting because another friend who came on the retreat, another young guy, a filmmaker, he wants to make a film now about meditation and mindfulness. So he asked me, do you know any good documentaries about this? So I mentioned a few, and then I also Googled, and what I found mostly were spiritual documentaries. So I've watched them in the past few days, and they are very inspiring. But it's interesting that the ones that I watched were about one person who has made massive changes. One man has made massive changes in the world, and that is S.N. Goenka. You may like to Google him. He is actually a Vipassana meditation teacher. He was from Burma. He's an Indian man. His form, his body, his heritage is Indian. Born in Burma. His teachers are Burmese Vipassana masters. They told him to take Vipassana back to India because Vipassana was lost in India. And so he took it back. I'll just type that name down. He took it from Burma to India, and he started teaching there with no contacts. Now there are 197 Vipassana centers around the world in 108 different countries. And this all came from one man. You should see the size of the meditation centers that have been built in India. One of them can fit 8,000 people in a huge dome inside a huge pagoda that he had built for this meditation. And all the time, it was only done on donations. He never charged any money for any of his teachings. And he also instructed all his workers, anybody else who helped him, you cannot receive money for this except in the donation, and then the donation goes to the center. And so now there is this huge, huge organization. Well, I don't know how huge the organization is, but a huge network right across the world, 197 Vipassana meditation centers. When you hear about the 10-day Vipassana meditation course, that's the one. So he has made Vipassana, and he calls it Vipassana. When you, that's the Indian pronunciation. Actually the Sanskrit pronunciation is Vipassana. But when you hear the word Vipassana and people are talking about that 10-day retreat, that's the one. So, and many other videos that I watched where one person finds their passion, they find what they really love and what they really want to do. And because they throw their whole life into it, it changes everything. Another quick example. This video is called Regreening the Deserts. So it's regreening the desert. And he's a man, an American guy. I think he's Chinese originally. He went to China to film the Chinese people establishing trees and grass and replanting a desert, and they were successful. He filmed it. He was so touched by it that he started to take this work around the world, and now that's all he does. He just travels around the world, changing old land back into forests and useful land for everyone. The story is phenomenal. And there are many stories like that. One man can make such changes in the world, one woman. So don't underestimate yourselves, friends. Even the small things that you can do in your life, even just something like being a good listener. That's all you have to do. If you want to be an amazing person, all you have to really do is be a good listener, because that's what people want. To be a good speaker, like me, just talking all the time, is not necessarily what people need or what they really want. We can listen to lots of different people, but to be a good listener is an amazing experience in life, and it has so much potential, so much healing power for you to be open-minded, to be relaxed, to allow the person to say whatever they want to say, and you listening, checking yourself for any blockages, any judgments, any opinions. When you release those judgments and opinions and you just listen, that person feels free. They feel your metta. They feel your love. They feel your openness. They feel your non-bias, your non-judgmental nature. And actually, in a way, they start to feel an affinity with you. They feel trusting with you. They start to love you. Not love in the sexual sense or anything like that, but just they love to be with you. And it's that metta, the universal, unconditional love. And you didn't do anything. Actually, you just listen. Open your heart and listen. And this is how you can become a different person, an amazing person. You can make a very big difference in your family, in your life. You can really change your life simply, really, actually, by doing nothing, by being calm, by being relaxed, by being mindful, by being yourself, by being open, by being really just here and now in the presence of somebody else. And the way we practice that is through our meditation. So that's enough talking for one evening. Sorry again if I've gone on for too long. Let's do some meditation together. I'll be able to I'll be guiding it for some part of the way. Just check a few notes and that people have said. Please do whatever you need to do before a meditation. Perhaps go to the bathroom, have yourself a little sip of tea. As I said last week, switch your cat off and put your phone outside. It wasn't last week, it was the week before.